we will look together, first of all, in terms of the background and some of the government actions that take place in mixed cities. They go beyond the specific government resolution that I'll address today. We present the data, I'll share it briefly, and then, or perhaps skip it because of the time, and then we look at the resolution itself. But for me, the heart of the discussion really is the potential intervention areas for funded philanthropy. There's a lot of them, and I think it's really important for you guys to understand what they are and for us to hear what your thoughts are, so we can move ahead with joint planning in a coordinated manner, and I'll touch on that at the end. So the mixed cities in Israel are 7, excluding Jerusalem, which is dealt with in a separate government resolution, a 5-year plan. 4 cities in the north, Ma'alot Tarshiha, Acre, Haifa, and Nof HaGalil, and 3 cities in the center, Tel Aviv or Jaffa, Lod, and Ramle. Bear in mind that only in 2021, for the first time, a series of government resolutions that deal with the Arab society in Israel addressed the Arab society directly. Before that, Arab residents in mixed cities fell between the cracks. So basically, 922, other government resolutions, specific resolutions that concern other cities in Israel through other government national priorities did not address the mixed cities and did not address the Arab residents in mixed cities. So in a way, or not in a way, I mean, this government resolution sets a significant precedence in that sense. But let me just briefly touch upon the actions that address the needs of mixed cities beyond the specific resolution. The current government resolution is not the only one that allocates funds for the Arab society in mixed cities. Resolution 550, in and of itself, expands and funds some of the coverage areas in certain policy to provide for Arab society in mixed cities. Policy areas include education, informal education, business development, training programs, and various other actions that meet the needs of the individual, i.e., for example, scholarships for elite sportsmen, specific actions that provide for people who are for artists. So the individual Arab resident in mixed cities also benefit from funds that are being allocated through 550 in itself. In addition to that, 550 included a specific call for proposal that allocated 50 million shekels to 5 cities. That was one of the first actions that took place last year, immediately after 550 was approved. So the wheels in terms of that proposal, that call are already in motion and are being implemented, and I'll show you the actions that take place. In addition to that call, an amendment to Resolution 549 was authorized several months ago, expanding services to increase personal safety and reduce violence and crime. This specifically addressed Akko, Lod, and Ramle, and 60 million shekels were invested in aspects that concern security. This is not something we directly deal with, but it's a significant investment in issues which was raised by the authorities, by residents themselves, and it's an important complementary element to what we do. And then we reach to today's discussion, the current resolution. This resolution was designed originally in terms of our planning to escort 550, i.e. to cover the years 22 to 26. The Ministry of Justice, before the elections, did not enable us to, in terms of, it's part of government regulation, we were not authorized to decide policy till 26 before there's a change in government. So the decision was approved for 22-23 with a specific clause that guides us to follow up with an additional decision after the new government will power. Yes. One additional thing that we need to acknowledge, the government did not have much data on mixed cities, and it did not have data on Arabs living or residents in mixed cities. Perhaps you find it surprising, I find it surprising. What we did together with Nasreen and her team at the Israeli Democracy Institute is come up with a research that really shaped the resolution. And I know it was supported by SCF and perhaps other members. This was instrumental. We cannot emphasize how important that research was in terms of clarifying to government officials, to different ministries, how significant the gaps are, how evident they are. You know, it's specifically after May 2021. The political agenda are complex. It's a very complex area to engage in. It's very different than Arab local authorities. Each city is different, and that research was very important. So I mean, I just because of time considerations now, I mean, I want to go through it. But the presentation, and I know there's a summary and abstract that exists in English, and also perhaps you could consider translating the entire document. I think it was a very good piece of research, and I hope we can do the same with other actions in the future. Having said that, I do want to present this slide. If you look at the composition of population in terms of the different cities, you can see how different they are. But the most important thing to look at in terms of this slide is the difference between the socioeconomic index of the local authorities in and of themselves, as opposed to the index of Arab statistical areas, which are where the Arab residents live. These are Arab neighborhoods or mixed neighborhoods. As you can see, for example, look how evident the gaps are in Tel Aviv or elsewhere. But for example, in Ma'alot, the picture is less diverse. So we all need to remember that the cities are very different than one another. And I think there's a tendency in government circles and perhaps in your circles too to talk about mixed cities as a parcel. And they are different. And therefore the programs, the solutions, the plans that we all come up with need to address and be tailored to the needs of the specific cities. I'll run through this. So let me quickly touch upon the resolution itself. The resolution has three key goals. First of all, touch on reducing gaps between the Arab society and the general population. The gaps, as I said, are very significant. Secondly, promote shared society in the mixed cities and improve personal security and preventing violence and crime through those activities. And as I said earlier, this connects to the amendment to 549, which adds additional funds to deal directly with prevention of violence and crime, such as cameras, etc. Let me first touch on what this resolution does. It sets a precedent by providing a definition for mixing that did not exist before in government. So it allows other government ministries to use and leverage this definition in setting and shaping future policy that concern these cities. A mixed city is defined as having a majority of Jewish population with a significant number of Arab minorities, either more than 20% or over 20,000. And I think maybe we can touch on that in our discussion. We also there are mixed cities information. that's something that we do not deal with directly, but can have perhaps in the area fund this. If it's okay, we'll come back to the shared society issue at the end. I think it's a complex discussion. So focus areas of the resolution itself include education and shared society, youth, personal safety, employment, social and welfare service, and culture and sports. Two additional clauses cover very important issues, which are housing and local government, are excluded from this resolution. We were not authorized to include them because they did not include immediate actions at that time. But the housing issues and local government are crucial, and we intend to follow up on them in the follow-up resolution. These are the government ministries that are partnering and implementing the resolution with us. I know there's a lot of discussion now about the change in the composition of this ministry. There will be changes, particularly with regard to the Ministry of the Territory, Negev and Galilee. But they all remain the implementers, and they're committed and obliged to do what the resolution instructed them to do. So in that manner, one should not be too concerned. Let me briefly introduce the central components of the resolution. And then we answer a question at the end. So in the field of youth movement, we will expand activities for social engagement center. The gap year, what Iran presented previously, will include Arab residents in big cities or Arab youth. That did not happen before, and it will mean all of them will be able to participate. In employment field, we will integrate and expand employment guidance centers. We will expand existing employment circuits program, allowing more participants. In terms of social services, this is a very important area. We will strengthen existing programs and expand them. There is a need to invest in human capital, specifically all Arab social workers in welfare departments in certain cities. There's a lot of elements that concern diversity. And I know this may be an area of interest too. The community mediation and dialogue centers, the Yishuim, if you all know, these will be specific, these will be expanded through the program significantly. They will be expanded in the cities and in terms of the programs they execute to address, again, specifically the tensions and the issues that concern the complex meeting between Jews and Arabs in mixed cities. Perhaps there's a specific clause which aims to strengthen shared society. This is the focus of the Ministry of Education within the specific resolution that concerns the mixed cities. We will also establish daycare centers in Arab neighborhoods. And again, this is an important element of the resolution that you should know because it goes beyond the specific clause. The idea here is to see how we as government can make things happen in restricted geographical areas, i.e. how we make sure that if we establish daycare centers, they're all built in Arab neighborhoods or in mixed neighborhoods. Because, we were concerned that government funds can be misused in terms of how municipalities allocate the funds. And we restricted that in terms of the clause. Having said that, it doesn't mean that the municipalities misuse funds. I don't want to deliver that message at all. But it was important for us in terms of the government message here to anchor how funds are being used. There are specific aspects that concern culture and sports. There are incentives, I'll just touch on this briefly. There are incentives for sports facilities, again, in Arab neighborhoods. There's a specific discount on matching that reduces the percent of funds that municipalities need to add to sports facilities if they build them in Arab neighborhoods or mixed neighborhoods. And in terms of the model itself, or again, this, as you can see, this is a resolution that looks at things holistically. This is our objective here. And there are also other policy areas that we think we can touch upon, but we're not there yet. So tourism, for example. But we want to establish a model that assists local authorities in implementing this resolution. This is something we hope to do. And an important additional element is another shared society program called Proposal by Native David, already published, additional 15 million shekels on top of the 50 million I mentioned before. So 65 altogether. And we also looked deeply into that whole proposal because there were lessons from the previous one. There are certain things certain activities that we didn't like. And yeah, and we really tried to do that better now. And the ministry was very cooperative. And I think also there's a learning process here for the municipalities themselves. So if some of you engage directly with the municipalities or with NGOs within those municipalities, I strongly suggest to touch on that issue. And this is again a recommendation from my side, engage directly with them. They're in a different place now as far as I can tell. The budget overall, we're talking about 46 million. This is the division in terms of the fund allocation. And let me again, as I said, as Leon mentioned in the beginning, things progressed since our last conversation, which was I think 6 weeks ago or so. So in November this month, right after our recent conversation, the standing committee that governs this resolution, but also governs 550, there's a standing committee that basically you were asking, I was asked before about interagency coordination. This is one of the mechanisms to do that. So government structures are complex. We didn't want to add another standing committee. So the standing committee that manages 550 manages this resolution too. So we had a meeting with the Director General of our ministry and many other ministries, and all the work plans for the resolutions are now approved, and and budgets are being allocated right now. We're in December, and the execution will begin immediately in January.
If you look just at this, if you look at our 550 paper from earlier this year, there's a section about the standing committee and the deviation mechanism and Ganon Satot that explains the whole mechanism.
Yeah, and I think you also wrote a nice paper presenting, for this session, which is also my presentation. To look at this. Yeah, and this picture that you see here is again, I was in Akko with 30 representatives from these cities, including directors of the education department and the welfare department. This was this sponsor proposal that I mentioned. This was a training session attended by 30 representatives. From one of the that said, this student, she's been position for 20 years. It was only then that I understood that I ran a website in a mixed city, sorry. So this was in a way surprising for me to hear, but a very good discussion that aimed to prepare them for the mission. And I said I'll mention examples of what they're doing. So these activities that you see here, and the ones highlighted are the ones that we thought are perhaps more significant than others, are all actions that the municipalities implement as part of that calling of proposals. So as you can see, there are very nice and innovative actions here. And there's an opportunity here for local civil society organizations to take part as implementers here. And again, I mean, as we all know, it's nice on paper. I want to see these things happen in reality, but they are funded for these actions, and we don't monitor directly the execution. This is done by Negev Galil, but we work closely with the office to make sure that these things are happening. And let us reach the heart of the discussion, as I said earlier, because I really wanted to make use of our time here to touch on three specific areas that I think philanthropy can be relevant in. And it goes beyond funding. We look at first funding, but I think there's a lot of planning and coordination that can happen. And also, let us look about the mechanisms too. So, in terms of funding, and this was mentioned also in Hassan's presentation, because it's quite similar. Hassan presented the principles. I can present here the practical actions that can happen. So, in terms of funding, I think supplementary funding for urban matching for the needs of the municipalities is significant. I think, strengthening civil society organizations is crucial. They are weak, particularly in mixed cities, and I'm talking about local organizations. I'm not talking about the national ones that you all know, and their work is instrumental. Does, I think, an amazing work in mixed cities, and as part of the consultation program that we process in terms of forming up the decision, we received the position papers and from 36 different organizations, and there was very helpful. I think, you can help in support the construction of public institutions that strengthen our society. There's some examples here. And also look at the education system. Daycare centers, for example, here are knows very well. There are no daycare centers for our infants at all. It's quite amazing, it's high. And let's look at the other elements of planning, coordination, supporting mechanisms. Research here, as I said before, is very important, and I think we should really follow up with more research and deepening knowledge bases and studies about the mixed cities or specific elements and areas of interest within those cities. I think we can, we're still very interested in measuring. We're thinking that it could be very interesting to create an urban index that measures, that looks at the fabric of shared life in mixed cities and regions. And there's some work by Israeli organizations on that, but I don't think it's well developed yet. And I think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of enhancing professional forums of professionals in mixed cities. These can be forums for local municipalities themselves, but not only. This can be, religious leaders. This can be NGOs. This is my last two examples are places that we as government cannot reach. And if we look at the last element in terms of I think what does not exist in Israel at all, and there's only now pioneering efforts at the Galil and Amakim clusters are units that look at shared society. These can be units at the municipal level, the local level. That's what they do. That's their area of interest, and I think that's a very interesting element to look at. Strengthening the human capital of social workers in around the law. This is a specific example, but this is a place where we as government cannot reach. I'll just explain because it's a specific example. There's absence of Arab social workers in those departments. they don't want to come to work in those cities. It's very difficult to work in these cities. The salary is low, and we as government are in a position that we cannot provide incentive to those social workers because it's creating differences between what other social workers elsewhere get. So it's not providing funds, but it's thinking together about a mechanism that can provide incentives. I think the business sector is something that is definitely worthwhile exploring in terms of joint businesses. And I think, Sarah, you mentioned in our discussion yesterday another interesting direction. So again, I think there are three elements here: planning and coordination, funding, and supporting mechanisms, which are the most significant areas for intervention in terms of what you do. This resolution is new. It's innovative in terms of what it does. It's new in terms of the coverage areas. We are all aware of the complexity in terms of politics, and it was mentioned here in the beginning by Ivan. We pretty much hope that we can get this year. We intend to, as you all know, that will not go away if the government change. It's an area that is very important for us as an authority. And I think even if there will be political changes, we will do our best to find a way to continue and support our residents in mixed cities because it's simply much needed. That's all. So thank you very much.